All right, to Sudan now, where fighting could be heard in Khartoum early today. Despite the extension of the ceasefire for a further 72 hours, the United Nations, meanwhile, has warned of a humanitarian breaking point as clashes enter a third week. The rival military forces have kept fighting through a series of ceasefire, which both have accused the other of breaking. The fighting has sent tens of thousands of people fleeing into neighbouring countries and has deepened the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, where a third of the people already depend on some form of assistance. At the same time, the UNs World Food Programme says it's lifting the suspension it placed on its operations after 3 of its team members were killed in the clashes on April the 16th. At least 528 people have been killed and 4,599 wounded, but the UN believes the real toll is much higher. Now let's get an update. We're now joined via Zoom by Salim Owis, a communications officer at UNICEF Regional Office in the Middle East and North Africa. Salim, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now we know, in a time of war, the greatest casualties are children. The death toll now stands well over 500. What's the situation currently in Sudan, especially where children are concerned?
Yeah, thank you so much. As you said, unfortunately, children are the most and the first to suffer from these kinds of disasters, conflicts, especially. In Sudan, the situation is really, really dire, and it gets worse by the minute as long as the fighting continues. Children in Sudan are really paying the heaviest price at the moment. These are children who are already vulnerable. They've been through a lot already, and they are some of the most in need in the region. In Sudan, before the crisis now, there were over 7 million children in urgent need for humanitarian assistance. So imagine now with the fighting and with everything that's happening with the displacement, some of them are refugees now, it's becoming a real problem. Just this year, before the crisis, there were over 611,000 children suffering from acute malnutrition. These children are suffering now more. Over 50,000 children were suffering from severe acute malnutrition and receiving around the clock aid and therapy. Unfortunately, we are risking these children to face death because of the interruption of health system in Sudan. So the situation is really, really bad.
Does it help at all, that the UN's World Food Programme says it's now lifting the suspension it placed on its operations? It placed these sanctions on April 16 when 3 of their workers were killed. Will it relieve aid in any way? And more importantly, now that we know that there's consistent fighting continuing even during ceasefire, how will that aid get to those children?
Yeah, I think you touched on a very important point, is humanitarian workers can't deliver aid under fire. It's really needed to one, ceasefire immediately, for a truce that holds and allows all the humanitarian actors to be on the ground and reach the most vulnerable children and families. As you said, many organizations halted their response. In UNICEF, we are continuing trying to continue our already existing programming in the places that are quiet enough, are safe enough to do so. But the problem is reaching those who are in dire need for this assistance, who are now in the crossfire. There are thousands of families are escaping this crisis and trying to find a safer place. Unfortunately, we can't reach them because they are in the most impacted areas. So what we're trying to do is, one, advocate and actually try to find a way for children and families to safe passages for them to go to a safer place. Two, trying to sustain our already present programs in Sudan, in the places that we can do that, and try to meet the needs, the new needs that's happening from this conflict. Again, this is only possible if we get guarantees and we get safe passages to reach those people.
Now, of course, your teams have been working, on the ground. Talk to us about what are they saying? What are the real challenges at the moment, in working in a situation like this? I mean, we've heard accounts from people that have fled Sudan who would tell of harrowing stories of gunshots all around them. I mean, some took 8 days to leave Khartoum and to get to safe passage. Just talk to us about what are some of the challenges your teams are facing?
Well, again and again, the first challenge is access to those people who are stranded in the fire lines. Two is the security in general, the security of our personnel, but also the security of our assets and our supplies in the country. Unfortunately, there were several reports on these attacks on the UN system as a whole and other NGOs. So these are very, very worrying challenges because they really comprehend the aid unable to reach people in need.
Salim, always thank you so much for speaking to us this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. That, of course, is UNICEF's spokesperson in the regional office in the Middle East and Africa.